Persuasion Pathways. We touched on Persuasion Pathways in our first vlog that we did when we sort of rushed it at the end. So we've actually got some visuals. We've got a PowerPoint, so I'll be able to drop some stuff in now.
Which kind of tells how we build them and how we track them. That piece, and one of the key points we were trying to make was that when you think of a website as pathways, you can't design it or spec it in the traditional ways. No. So you can't draw it like an organogram, and you can't just think about it as here's a template, here is the content. You have to think about what you're trying to get people to do. So actually what we end up doing is we develop it more as a storyboard,
and then wireframe it.
Well, in a wireframe format. So we might do a written storyboard in terms of this is the path or this is the transaction.
And again, let's go back a step, because it's actually for different people. So it's actually we come up with what personas. So we actually say these are the personas, these are the type of people coming to this website,
and this is what we want to do with them.
And we'll be showing the brighter business one. So in that case, it's SME insurance, and it's people who know exactly what they want. Therefore, they just want to click as quickly as they can through to get a quote.
Yeah, that's right.
People who are just researching, getting some more information. So again, there's a different pathway for them. And then there's a third one, which is they're not sure really at the moment.
Absolutely. And interesting enough, we're in phase 2 now, so we're defining new pathways from the behaviours we've learned from the first one. So essentially
So having done that, we wireframe it, we then prototype it, and then at that point we actually start looking at design. So it's not typical, like you say, we don't do the sort of sitemap, because again the sitemap is irrelevant for most websites. Those websites that are delivering sales at the end of the day.
And one of the main reasons it's irrelevant is because some of the pages in the pathway in this case are actually dynamically created based on the options you choose in the pages before. So they don't exist in a site.
That's right.
A sitemap. They're not there. They appear
and
because you've done
contextually,
something.
And that's in terms of the images and also the copy and the tone of voice that's used on those pages.
Yeah, it very much depends on where you've been before.
Wireframe, grayscale to the prototype to get the balance and the shape right. Again, from the kind of wireframing piece, the elements that go towards the design of the page.
Correct.
Then introduce some colour at that point, and then we're into standard sort of UAT stuff.
Well, you're into user interface design, so that's colours, buttons, text weights, visibility, and all the time we're trying to keep DDA compliant as well as we go on these things as well. So that's a key thing for us nowadays. But so you get to a point where you've taken your wireframes into a prototype which is in colour. So the client can start to interact with it and see it and work with it, and then once it's honed, then we implement and which is actually a traditional bit of our work, which is basically web development. It's after that piece that's really key, which is how you actually show that the pathways are working and you measure the pathways
and test them and then tweak them. And again, it's actually doing split A/B testing around things like we can do it around button styles, but also what does the actual copy on that button say, and let's swap them out and actually see whether it makes a big difference.
And in fact, you've said there's testing in that case, in that sense of testing and improving, but there's also something we've learned very recently is that because of the nature of pathways and the multiplicity of them, you must check every single outcome thoroughly and have a process for checking every single outcome thoroughly and constantly do it. And then whenever you make an amend on a very small part of the pathway, you have to do the whole check again. Because
I think technically we need to build that in. I'm sure that in the same way that traditionally you would have broken links, kind of being able to pick that up through the back office. I think we need to implement something technically to make sure that.
That's an issue as we learn as we go along with some of this new technology, and it's inevitable that we get there. But the key though is to measure it and improve the pathway if possible. So see where people are dropping out, see where people can go forward, see which people like it, see which people don't. Handle them in different ways. Make sure there's a safety net to drop people back into a traditional web environment if they want, or there's something they can do more than if they want to as well as they go forward. So there's a lot to it, and tracking and measuring it is very, very key. And we're developing tools that don't exist in the real world. You can't buy these tools. So we're developing bespoke tools to measure the sites we've created, which is the puts the tin lid on it really from a client point of view. Really shows that what we've developed works, and therefore it gives them some proper reportability that they can present in, to their management boards or whatever it might be, to show that things are working properly. And actually, interesting enough, up until now, most of the testing you would get would be kind of page click testing, which would say this page has been presented X many times. And you could, to a certain extent, you could do it in a pathway. So you could say somebody clicked Google and went there, but we can't tell you which one it was or which person it was. But in fact, with our tracking and persuasion pathways as we've developed them, you can say person X came from there, did this and this, and went away. And because we're session tracking now, it gives you a much bigger scope and a much bigger understanding of what's happening online.
The key, again, in terms of the sort of usability stuff, and what I've been saying to people, is that you need to move away from the thought that that's traditionally the way I was taught in terms of navigational hierarchy, that you should always aim for the minimum number of clicks. And what we're saying here is that it doesn't really matter, so long as they're following their journey through, right. and you're persuading them at each point, then you can actually go off to a completely unlinked page to anything else, resolve maybe an FAQ, something you weren't sure about, come back and then continue along on the sales process.
It's about the experience, not the clicks. So if it takes them 17 clicks to get where they want, but they got there quickly and easily, then it doesn't matter.
Cool. So someone we need to talk to.
So it doesn't matter how they got there, or as long as they did, that's great. Now, what you've really got to look at is the length of that whole session, because it could take somebody 2 minutes to not find the link they wanted on a certain page, but it could take them a minute and a half to click 17 times and get to exactly where they want. So it isn't about getting people to somewhere in one click. I mean, that's almost impossible anyway in most websites, but it's about getting them there quickly and making them feel assured that the pathway is driving them down the right route, which is why we call them persuasion pathways and not just pathways.
Or the customer journeys.
Or customer journeys, because customer journeys is very random, but what we're saying is we're actually almost funneling people down different tracks, and we're persuading them to go a certain way or do certain things, and when they don't do them, we have something else to do with them. We can take them somewhere else and handle them in a different way. But it's certainly, the theory is very good, and in practice it seems to be working very well as well. We're getting extremely high conversion rates on the sites we've done with this. Like 50% of people are going through the persuasion process we want, which is a huge number.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't have expected that, and you wouldn't have predicted.
But again, the thing that we need to then work on is 50% aren't
that's
going
right.
through. So
on some days we've had 70 or 80%. So we can do it, and we can go and achieve a lot more with them, and we can get more people through. And and actually, what we're looking at is splitting paths out and refining them, so we can do even cleverer things with them as we go.
Okay, fine. And I'll drop some visuals in at various points. Cool. Or you'll have seen them by now.
Yes, that's right. Oh yeah, you've done that.
Okay,
brilliant.